No countdown. No countdown. Appreciate you guys so much. Yeah, it's. I don't even know how to
You can hear
describe
the
it.
party in the
Listen,
background.
I'm gonna give a quick intro. Welcome to the Michigan at the Voice of College Football podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Subscribe, like, and with that, we're gonna talk about Michigan, Ohio State. Dre, I'm kicking it off to you. Yeah, this is your show. Do your thing. Go. How are you feeling right now?
It's been 20 years, man. Or not 20 years, 10 years since 2011 since we last beat them. Since we last got them. And all that trash in my family. Now I told the people I'm married into an Ohio State family. All the trash I've been hearing through Thanksgiving week. And I said I knew it was gonna be easy. And I knew it was gonna be an uphill battle, but you can't keep being cocky. One day you gotta break through. And we did it. We did it. And I can't tell you the joy of seeing the egg on all those Ohio State faces. How I feel now. We on our way to Indy. Our time. So, you know what? It's been a long time coming. Cause you know what? This team, they fought and they fought, and they grew. They grew. They had their strengths, they had their weaknesses, but they grew. They didn't get stuck in the mental hurdles that have stopped them in the past, right? And Michigan State, you go up 16 points, right? And it didn't end the way in Michigan's favor, right? And they could have, in previous years, they could have let that totally disrail their season, but they didn't. They picked themselves up. They figured it out. They went and played a tough game at Penn State. And we talked about that. That was a monumental moment. That was being down on the road with your back against the wall, can't have a loss, and they figured it out. And today, man, it didn't matter what Ohio State did. Those kids stayed strong. They stayed locked in, and they got it done, man. They got it done. And I can't. I'm so proud of them. Everyone talked about what Ohio State, about the Ohio State receivers, including myself, and Des, we talked about it. The formula worked to perfection today. To perfection. What did we say? Now I wasn't able to make because I was traveling for the holiday. The pregame show. I'm not sure if you was able to read off my prediction or not, but I said it in the previous weeks after the Maryland game. What Michigan has to do: control the TOP with the running game, right, and prevent the explosive plays. We knew Ohio State was going to score. They're too good not to score. But to make them drive the field and make them have to work on it, work at it, and take time off the clock, everything that Michigan had to do, and we said this, everything Michigan has to do, play a perfect game. And that formula, right, it worked to perfection. And you put Ohio State in an uncomfortable position where they don't have all this time to go up and down the field, right? And, man, it was a great game plan, great play calling by Josh Gaddis, his best play calling of his Michigan coaching career. It was just fantastic. And Aiden Hutchinson, we talked about him all year. Today, he became a legend. 3 sacks? 3 sacks? I mean, today he became a legend. He became a legend. It was a masterpiece, man.
The funny part and the interesting part, they're in the car, is, we obviously we talked about it, but there were times in this game where it would be easy to look at Harbaugh's track record and be concerned, right? So Michigan's up 7-0. They force, Ohio State to punt, and then they're going back to, the Ohio State punts the ball. Michigan's driving. Great field position. They're driving, and then Cade throws the pick. It's very easy to look back at that and be like, you know what? That's the missed opportunities. And that's what always happens, right? Like it was easy to look at that and say that of just like, man, because you look at it like, okay, at the worst case you go up 10-0, best case you're up 14-0 and putting the pressure on, Ohio State. But man, I can't give Jim Harbaugh and his guys, because I think the thing is the tough part on the front end of the first 15 plays of that offense is the first 15 plays of that offense looked amazing. That looked like the best offense in the country.
Yes.
And then after that, when it was just off the cuff, and I think you responded to me via text. I text you like the first, within the first couple plays, I'm like, your offense came to play. These guys look ready, and they didn't continue that, right? So they had a lull in the middle of the game, but crunch time when you needed it, man, those guys came through. And I'm just listen for someone who has been very critical of Jim Harbaugh again and again, because to me, I'm like, you had plenty of opportunities. For someone who has been extremely critical of him, I'm giving him all the praise, man. You had your guy number one. The very first thing I look at is you had your guys ready to play. They were ready to play. Michigan was ready to go from the word jump. They were ready to go, and that's coaching. Like, that is coaching. So I want to make sure that I give him all of the credit, because had he lost this game, I would have been the same one here crushing him. That's a literally A+ job. He did a phenomenal job, and I think not only him doing a great job of coaching, but also doing a great job of getting your leaders ready to go, because that's just as important as well. Like, making sure, because when you're a team captain, and when you're one of those guys that, you know what I mean, like Hassan Haskins, Aiden Hutchinson, you have a closer connection with the head coach. Like, you have different meetings with the head coach that just a normal guy who's just starting doesn't have. So for him to have those guys ready to go, and for those guys to be just driven, ready to go, and literally from the jump, like, that's incredible, man. That is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the energy was there from the get go, and it was sustained throughout the game, no matter what happened, and that's very very tough to do, to emotionally, um, gosh, I'm so spent, to emotionally keep it at their level. We can hear the party in the background, to
Yes,
emotionally.
people are very excited at the.
As they
I
should
went
be.
to one of my friends'
Everybody should
places,
be
and
partying.
and
This
he's a
is,
Michigan fan, but it's unreal. It's
yeah, I
unreal.
mean, everybody should, because you know what, the rivalry has been so lopsided in terms of the final result, and to finally break through, it's special. It's special, and to have year after year, heartbreak after heartbreak, some close games, some not, and for this team, this is just not, and to win the way that they did win, right? To physically, I thought, be the most dominant team all day. That really speaks to just how great it was, right? Not only did we win the game, but we were the most mentally tough team. We made the less penalties. Ohio State made more penalties than we did today, and we kept our emotions for the most part. And we were physically the better team today. And who knows? You can look at on paper. You can maybe 9 times out of 10 you say Ohio State's a better team. Whatever, that's your business. But today, Michigan, in all facets of the game, was the better team. Cade played a tremendous game. He made some beautiful throws all day. He made one interception. Bad decision. He kind of stared down Wilson in the red zone. But I love the aggression. What I was concerned was that after that interception that he would get a little gun shy. And so would Gaddis potentially with certain passing plays, but they didn't. They kept the ball in K's hands. They even did something that made us both nervous. They played JJ many times today, and JJ made plays today. And so I have to tip my hat to that. Running the football and passing the football at times. So it was just a beautiful orchestrated game defensively. Mike McDonald did what we all thought he had to do, which was essentially play two high safeties, and prevent as much as possible the explosive play down the field. And we knew Ohio State was going to move the ball, and they were going to score touchdowns at times, but it was to make them work for it and to do it with as less time as possible, with as much time used as possible. And it was a beautiful job by the coaching staff, by the players executing. You really feel for us. And Harbaugh's had a lot of critics, including myself, And you feel good for him, man. You feel good for him. You feel good for kids like Aiden Hutchinson, Hassan Haskins, kids who've been in this program 4 or 5 years. Especially a kid like Aiden who could have left, probably got drafted in the first 2 rounds last year, and he came back. And he said it many times throughout the year. He came back because he wanted to do. He didn't want to leave without beating Ohio State, right? He wanted to make his mark on history, and boy, did he do it today! Not only by beating Ohio State, but being outside of Hassan Haskins, who had 5 touchdowns. I mean, incredible. But outside of Hassan Haskins having 3 sacks in this game, even the plays that he didn't reach home in terms of a sack, the pressures, unquestioned. If Hassan Haskins is the motor of his team, then Hutchinson is the heart. And he embodied that today through his example on the field and off the field. You just feel good for those type of kids, man. You feel good for them. This was their year. This was their year to get it done. There's still more on the table for them, and if for the first time we can talk about that. I mean, we're going to talk about next. There will be a show next week, and on Wednesday, and we get to talk about the Big Ten title, and rather who they will be playing. Michigan will be playing 2 teams that, let's be honest, that they are very capable of beating. It would not be easy, and by all means, they should not go into that game next week, with big heads. But, we're very capable of beating Minnesota, very capable of beating Wisconsin, no matter which one of those teams wins today. This team is looking at a very strong chance now of making it to the CFP, the college football playoff. My goodness. And, and to be quite honest, with a game like today, all things are on the table. There were people who thought Ohio State wasn't just a college football playoff contender, but a national title contender to win it, right? So to be honest, guys, it's okay to dream today, and I don't think we're selling smoke. I think it's okay. Me and Dez have been in lockstep with this. There's no juggernaut in college football this year. Georgia is very, very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but they're not perfect, right? So it's okay to dream today. They deserve it, and yeah, man, this is what you dream of, and it's here. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, you're fine, and I've been muting because, like I said, as I'm sure you are, Dre. My friends and family and everything are here, and they are celebrating loudly, and that as they should. But the thing that I want to just consistently do is stay right here. You know what I mean? In this game, because so many times, right? Jim Harbaugh's been here, what, 7, 8 years, and he's never been able to get over the Ohio State hump. And the thing that we've talked about, and I called you earlier today, this wasn't, here's the thing that I love was when Jim Harbaugh got over the Ohio State hump. It wasn't a year where Ohio State were just slouches. You know what I mean? It wasn't a year where, I just caught Ohio State when they had a 5-5 season. Like they
Right.
were 2-7. Like you didn't catch them then. Like you caught them when you could argue they were at their peak. You know what I mean? Like they just got through embarrassing Michigan State,
Yeah.
embarrassing them to the point where people were on Twitter talking about Michigan State shouldn't sign Mel Tucker to that extension. And
Right.
now we're reasonable people, so we know that's ridiculous. But nonetheless, like that's when you caught Ohio State, is they were coming off of that game. It wasn't 2018 where they just struggled off of a Maryland win where, basically they shouldn't have won that game. I'll believe that till the day I die. It wasn't then. It was when they came off an historic win, just absolutely embarrassing teams. They jumped Alabama in the CFP, and that's when you got them.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that I appreciate so much was not so much of it. Yes, you had to get them essentially, but but when you got them was just golden. Like it wasn't, you know what I mean? Because and stay with me for a little bit, but Dre, think about it. If let's say Ohio State Oregon happens the way it did, right? And let's say that Ohio State's first conference game, and I get it, this would never happen, but let's say it's Ohio State, Michigan, that first conference game, right? So they just come off the Oregon loss, and you beat them then, right? That would be different than what just happened today. Like, and that's the thing that I wanna, because a lot of times with just sports in general, like, right, the goalpost gets moved a lot because it's just like, yo, when you're a big time football man, like, all right, cool, you did it this week. What's up next week? Like, even before we get to that point, and I think we'll hammer that home on Wednesday, but just the timing of when you were able to get over that hump and beat Ohio State, it just can't be overstated. Man, this is an incredible win. This is an incredible win.
That's
And
one
I'm
of
actually
Harbaugh's
shocked
career.
you don't have a bigger smile on your face, to be quite frank.
Best win of Harbaugh's career. And you know what, man? All the grief that guy gets, and that guy, hey, a lot of it's warranted. He deserves it. He deserves it. This team deserves it. And like I said, when a team is going through adversity and they're getting stones thrown at them, and some of it's warranted. When I throw some of those stones, but when they're able to just stay the course, and finally break through that wall, that proverbial wall that just always seems to just stop them in their tracks, and it's incredible to see. And we don't what impact this has on the future in terms of recruiting or the results of this game going forward, that remains to be seen. Nor does it matter. This is Michigan's all about history. When those kids made their mark in history.
I'm sorry, Dre. Can I for 1 second just do a quick glimpse of what is happening here
Go
with
ahead.
my people?
Help yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm being very selfish, but I just need this to happen.
Show the
I
love.
need this to happen to see what is going on behind me. Just the people that are just excited about Michigan football.
They should.
Like, this is it. That's it. That's what it's about. That's why, you know what I mean? Like, the large fan base and like just everything. Like, that's what it's all about. So
Yeah.
sorry, I'm so sorry to take your time, but
No.
go ahead. It's your world.
No. It's about changing narratives, right? And for the last 15, 16, whatever it was, meetings, we've been Ohio State's doormat. We really have. Outside of an anomaly year in 2011. And like you said, man, the context also of what's on the line, right? And how both teams were playing coming to this game. This wasn't an Ohio State team that season was over, due to some early losses, right? Not really playing for anything. No, they were playing for everything. Number 2 in the country. National title, not just Big Ten title, favorites, national title favorites. Like, people thought they have a legit chance because of their offensive weapons. Not defensively, but their offensive weapons to win the whole thing, like they did in 14. And no, we put that to a screeching halt and we sent them packing, right? For years, they sent us packing. We sent them home packing, right? And it's, man, like I said, like, we literally took their soul with the way we ran that football. I mean, the visual, and we knew Ohio State wouldn't just go away. The visual, Ohio State works it down the field. Mike McDonough and the defense did it perfectly. You weren't going to keep them out the end zone for the most part, right? But we made them take a lot of time off the clock, right? We're still up 20-28. We get the ball back, and at this point, I think it's 4. I remember looking at the clock; it was 4 minutes and 45 seconds, and I'm pretty sure what was said on that sideline played out. It obviously played out exactly on the field. They probably, Harbaugh and Gaddis and the offensive line coach and Mike Hart, the running backs coach, probably said, "This is when we end it right now. This is where we end it right now." In that drive, with 4 minutes and 45 seconds to drive it down their throat, when they got to get a stop, and they're selling out, and they just couldn't stop Hassan Haskins in that running game. And that offensive line, it was masterful to watch, and it was debilitating. Ohio State just had nothing. And finally, they broke. Hassan breaks out and gets that run down to the 5-yard line. They just had nothing else. They had nothing left. They were physically overwhelmed in this game. They just were, and they weren't. And if they were not so talented on the outside with 3 NFL receivers in Olave, Sifin-Jibba, and Wilson, they might have lost by more today. That's how physically dominant the Wolverines were over the Buckeyes. That's the point I'm making. And so no, man, it was fantastic. Who cares what the future has to hold? But today, this will be a game that I think a lot of us will remember as Michigan fans for forever. It really is.
Dre,
K played well, and so once again, K made the throws he had to make, man. The throw to, Andre Anthony dropped one. It's kind of a drop. He had the leap take off. It was the offsides call, and K took a shot, overthrew it a tad, and Andre Anthony had to leave his feet. I'll put that 50-50 because Anthony had to leave his feet. So you got to give him an A for effort, but he had the ball right in his hands. Right, so it's like I said, K was splendid today, man. And I thought that, like I said, the biggest thing for him wasn't just the throws; it was not being rattled by throwing a pick at that point. Because at that point in the game, 100% of the momentum was on Michigan's side. You go up 7-zip, beautiful play calling. You text me, hey man, rinse, wash, repeat on that last drive, right? The very first drive the Gators had, and they were dominant in their first drive. They get the ball back. They get Ohio State to give them the ball in really good territory. And, they're driving again and, have a chance to go up 14-0 early in the first quarter, and we throw a pick. And that could have been a moment that, totally changed the game. And K could have went to a shell, right, or lost his confidence. He didn't. Gadsden lose his confidence in him. Of course, the running game still was the number one driving force, but we didn't become one-dimensional. We still passed the ball. Especially when we needed to. And at times that was unexpected. And it was just, like I said, man, it was incredible to watch.
So I told Mark on Wednesday that if Michigan won this game today, that the Saturday post game would be renamed. It would not be the Maize and Blue Review. It would just be the Dre Show. And that's truly how I feel.
Yeah.
And I want to let you keep rolling. So, but one thing I will do is acknowledge we got a super chat from Zakwa. Thank you so much, appreciate it. But it just simply says, "Let's go blue." And then also too, I will highlight Span Marchiola. Thank you once again, just a super sticker. But Dre, one thing I'll do, and I've, to be quite frank with everybody, have had quite a bit of libations. So I'm going to jump off camera for a minute and relieve myself. But the one question I will have to you is, Dre, here's the statement I will have to you, and I'd like to hear your response. Is, Dre, Michigan has a very clear path to the college football playoff.
Wow, talk dirty to me.
What is your response to that?
I think it's a 100% truth. You get past the monolith of Ohio State, and then you get to a Big Ten title game versus the Big Ten West. And we now know it will come down to Minnesota or Wisconsin. Michigan has beat Wisconsin, granted early in the year. So by all means, hey, Wisconsin's played a lot better football. You can never sleep on them. Same thing in Minnesota. We've seen what Minnesota did with Ohio State. They gave them a run for their money first game of the year. So both teams by no means are run overs. You got to have respect for them. But yes, we have a very clear shot at the college football playoff. Michigan is a better football team than both Minnesota and Wisconsin, bar none. Bar none. Don't care what the game is played, September, late October, late November. It doesn't matter. December, when this game will be played for the Big Ten title, Michigan's a better team. And, they just, that's the last thing in front of them. And it's a great opportunity. It's a neutral field. So you don't have to worry about any kind of crazy fan interactions or stuff like that. It's wide open for them because they are the front runner. They are the better team, no matter who they play this next game to get to the CFP. And yeah, man, I think they can get to the national title game.
I think Michigan in the college football playoff. Think about that. But when the season first started, let's take it back because you and I were both people of the thought that Michigan would essentially have multiple losses this,
Absolutely.
right? So we were
Absolutely.
both on that train. And here we are. Michigan is 11-1, going to going to the Big Ten championship, Indianapolis, with a chance to go to the college football playoff, and really either playing a team that they have already beat pretty badly,
Yep.
or another team in Iowa who's lost. I mean, come on, let's be quite frank,
So
and
it's Minnesota or Wisconsin, not Iowa.
but dude, you guys are better than Iowa. Michigan's better than Iowa.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to do that,
Iowa,
right?
Wisconsin, and Minnesota were better than all three of those teams.
Right. So it's one of those things where it's just like, you look at it like Michigan is going to the playoff. Like, how they I don't even know, like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with that? Because when you look at the when and Mark and I talked about it on Wednesday of just how much was on the line. There was so much on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for Ryan Day and for even someone who's been to a national championship in Ryan Day in his 2 years of being
Yeah.
the head coach at Ohio State, and even for Jim Harbaugh, who's been at Michigan for 7 years, has never been able to beat Ohio State, and for it to happen this year, you know what I mean, with Ohio State, the number 2 in the country, just coming off the most historic win they've had in their history, is as much as I'm aware of. But you drop 49 on the number 6 team in the country, and the week after that, Michigan beats them 42-21, 42-27.
Yeah.
I mean that's like I as much as I want to look forward, I want to stay here. Like at the same time, you know what I mean? Like because
It's an
I
incredible
don't want
turnaround.
to breeze past this because of the magnitude of this win has. Like, and
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we stay here. Like with on this game.
No, absolutely. I mean, I had them at 5-7, 6-6. And that was because of all the question marks. And that was the main thing. I'm like, I just don't know. Like, yeah, Kate started 3 games last year, but it wasn't like he was. It wasn't like he was like fantastic last year. Like I'm like I don't really know what Kate is. He didn't steal the job from Joe Milton before camp, right? Joe Milton broke out of camp with a starting job. Like I wasn't sure at that time, the impact Aiden was going to have. I knew he was a really good player, but he got even better this year than he was last year. David Ajabo came out of nowhere, in terms of being, a guy who probably is going to go in the first couple of rounds in this upcoming NFL draft if he decides to leave. I mean, like you didn't really know in the receiving core outside of Ronnie Bell who was going to be somebody we can legitimately depend on, right? We knew Hassan Haskins was solid. We knew we had an incoming freshman in Donovan Edwards, but no one expected Blake Corum to pop like he did early in the season, right? Not like that. So, like, there were a lot of question marks, and like, man, I just don't know where the dynamic, like, what can we depend on? Like, what can we pencil in, right? Before the season started, that this is going to be a legitimate position. This guy's going to be an impact player Saturday after Saturday, which is the reason why, a lot of us were so pessimistic, about what the team could do. And every week they just continue, they just have proven ground, improved it, which is what it has to be like. I mean, as a fan, you can choose to go the slappy route, which is everything is awesome and we're going to do it because we're going to do it, right? It's not really based in things that are fact or proven, or you can go the quote unquote pessimistic route or logical route, which is, like I need to see it to believe it, which is definitely the camp I fall into. But to their credit, man, they just never gave up. They continued to get better week after week, and they stayed locked in on their goals. And that's not easy to do, man. They could have easily wilted that the way that, especially the way that MSU game ended for them. They could have easily wilted. And at that time, they didn't control their own destiny in terms of just because they won out didn't mean they were going to be able to get to this. They needed help. They needed things to happen. At that time, MSU didn't lose to Purdue. Right. So they didn't know. MSU could have, at that point in time, MSU could have just had a loss to Ohio State, scheduling wise, right? And it wouldn't have mattered if Michigan would have won out. Right. So they never, you could tell inside of the locker room, they didn't worry about what was going on around them. They stayed focused on each game at hand and they took care of their business. And that is commendable from the coaching staff down, because it's up to the coaches to set the tone and make sure the kids stay locked in on whatever they have to do. And it was just, yeah, man, it's not enough praise that you can give these guys. They deserve it, and it's their moment. It's their moment. You know, MSU had their moment. Penn State had their moment one year. Ohio State had their moment many years. This is the University of Michigan's time. Guys, this is our time. This is our moment. We're going to enjoy it.
And the thing that I think about is the resiliency of this. And let's just treat this game in a vacuum of, you go up 7-0 and you're driving to go up potentially either 10 zip or 14 zip, and you throw an interception, you turn the ball over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably so many guys, and one of the my good friends here, Nick, is just like, I just don't trust Harbaugh, man. Like that just it just is what it is. And then when that happens, you look at it like, it's hard, right? It's hard to look at the other 5 years, right? I think I'm right. Yeah. So before this he's 0-5. It's hard to look at the other 5 years and just be like, oh well, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll overcome this, and we'll blah blah blah. But Michigan was able to multiple times today overcome, whether it was just plays you didn't make. Like, it wasn't necessarily mistakes, but sometimes it was just we missed making plays on this, or we missed making plays on that. Like, it wasn't necessarily mistakes, but Michigan was able to overcome the just adversity. They were able to overcome some of the mistakes, right? It was sometimes where, man, guys should have made tackles in open field, but they were still able to, to overcome it. Penalties on offense, penalties on defense, whatever the case was, it was just like, you know what? All right, cool. That happened. Let's push it to the wayside, and let's dial in and let's get going. And I want to stay on the positive, and we'll get to some things where it's just like, man, like, maybe, right, if you want to have an A+ game, maybe we look at those types of things. You know what I mean? Like, but for now, like, I look at of just how Michigan was able to just overcome, whether it was adversity, whether it was mistakes, whether it was missed assignments, misalignments, whatever the case, like, they were able to overcome that and just still stay focused. Like, they never lost their composure. And that's impressive. Like, that is impressive, especially in a rivalry.
But I will say they were the more disciplined team today by far. I mean, Ohio State had, I have to check the statistics, but just based off memory, had more penalties than Michigan did. Right. And look, hey, all fair and game. Look, if this game was in Columbus, maybe that's a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? But let's just keep it real here. But definitely, Michigan, they were the more disciplined team more than not. Ohio State, made, how many false starts did they had? A couple holding calls, PI calls. That PI call by Burke when Wilson was kind of trying to come back was huge, right? I think that was on third down. So yeah, the Michigan was the more, disciplined team. They absolutely were. How many times have you said that on a hardball? They were the mentally tough and more disciplined team. It's huge. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah. And it's just like I said, when the gut punches happen and you're able to still come back from it, because if I'm not mistaken, Michigan went up 7-0 on this game and then ended up going down 10-7.
Yeah.
And from that, like, yes, they came back 14-10, but you know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure I give enough credence and enough credit to Jim Harbaugh, because he kept his guys composed. Like, because when you went down 10-7, I'm sure there were plenty of people that just looked at it, were just like, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, here we go again. And I'm sure, thank you to everybody. We've got 180 on the line, and I'm sure there's some people even on the line that were just like, here we go. Like, we're about to, Ohio State's getting ready to go on a run.
It was at the pick. It was when we were up 7-0 and K through the pick. It was like we had all the momentum. Oh no. That was the moment for me. I'm like, uh-oh. Like we had a chance, and now you got Ohio State calm. You're like,
yep.
That was the moment for me when I felt like it could turn.
And the thing is, CJ Stroud looked like at that point he was getting into a rhythm.
Yes.
Because on that first drive that they had the ball, and Mark and I talked about it on Wednesday, where we talked about it was just like, looking at it, I'm like, the thing is you want to get him uncomfortable. At the end of the day, you want to hit him, you want to knock him down,
They
you want
did.
to make him uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And in that first drive, he looked very uncomfortable.
Yes, he did.
He didn't. After that, once they scored that touchdown, he definitely looked comfortable. And I'm like, I thought watching the game, I'm just like, man, you're in a little bit of trouble because that's not what you want. You don't want him being comfortable. But Michigan's defense continued to hammer and work and get home because they had, I mean, multiple sacks on him.
Yes.
They fought, they clawed, they kept rolling, and they were able to. They impacted the game. That front four. I mean, I know Hassan Haskins had 5 touchdowns. I think over 160 yards.
Yeah.
I,
Very. Very.
if I were giving, and granted, it may be difficult to give an award to 4 or 5 guys. I would probably give it to Michigan's front four because what they did today was just incredible. With relatively from what I saw, there wasn't a lot of linebacker blitzes. So it was really those 4 guys up front just literally getting after the passer and going to
Mhm.
get CJ Stroud and sacking him multiple times. That was incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, they
Yeah.
did it.
Aiden became a legend today. To get 3 sacks in this game, and every sack, highly you can see based on the score, was critical. He Aiden Hutchinson, I think, and I don't believe you guys in chat. I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment. Aiden Hutchinson to me today, in terms of Michigan football history, stepped in the allure of Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard, any Michigan legends that made especially big impacts in this game. He stepped into that stratosphere for me, even as a defensive end, because of the impact and the leadership that he had for this team, and in particular the impact he had in this game. He had his moment in this game, right? It was absolutely like yes, Haskins had the incredible runs and the touchdowns, and it was absolutely it was also it was historic in his own right. But what Aiden has meant to this program this year and what he did today, it was like the icing on the cake. It was like, yes, this is it. We're winning this thing, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. And I'm the best player on this team, right? And I'm going to show it today. 3 sacks as a defensive end, man. Come on now. In the biggest game of the season, come on now. It's just, dude, if a Bosa brother would do that against Michigan, they'll be ready. They'll be going crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have no Desmond Howard pose or nothing like that. But Aiden will be remembered forever for what he did today. He's in Michigan football history. Absolutely.
Agree. And it just, I think the cool part is that coming into this game, right? Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Ohio State knew who 97 and 55 were,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they couldn't do anything with them. Like, and I want to make sure we isolate Aiden because he dominated the game.
Mm-hmm.
But Dabo had a really good game too. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? But
absolutely.
nonetheless, like, because on Wednesday, when we had the stream, and I forgot his name, and it might be Troy, but nonetheless, um, you know, I had, but with Mark was on, and then Troy, I believe that was his name. Talked about how good their tackles were. So it was not. It wasn't like it's just Michigan's DNs going against just some kind of layman, just some dudes out there. It's like, no, these are offensive tackles. Like, and I also heard too that Michigan, or I'm sorry, Ohio State had 4 really good offensive tackles. So what they did was took 2 of them and moved them down to guard. So they now have 4 essentially tackles on the field, and then along with the center. Like, just, I mean, like, when you're bringing in really good talent like that, you can do things like that. But nonetheless, like I want to make that known that Aiden did that against NFL talent. Like
Yeah.
because on the flip side, I would look at it if those tackles held Aiden to, whatever, one tackle in the game. I would look at it like, I would look at it the same way. Like those tackles held him to an NFL player to one tackle,
Yeah.
and they couldn't do anything with him. And that's just in him and Ojabo, because those guys in tandem did a phenomenal job of getting to the passer, pressuring Stroud, just making him uncomfortable, and that was the key to the game.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it off air, but the key, if you want to beat Ohio State, you got to get number 7 off his mark.
Even today,
Stand back.
even today, anytime he had time, and Joe Clark pointed out, anytime that CJ had time, more times than not, he was going to have a completion.
Mm-hmm.
More times than not. If he had 3 or 4 seconds, he was going to have a completion. That's just how good they are, how good CJ is, and how good it's just impossible to keep the Earth, Wind, and Fire combination, in check. It's just one of those guys are going to get open. It just is what it is. Like the incredible catch that, what was it, Smith and Jibba made. It was that Chris Olave. I think it was Smith and Jibba that made the catch on DJ Turner. He caught in one hand. I mean, like, that's incredible. That was on 3rd and 19. We just had a sack. Those guys are incredible. They really are. And that's why it was important. Every time we hit CJ, it was impactful and meaningful. And it was just, I just can't say enough about what those guys did today. It's just one of those things where you just tip your hat, you clap for them, and you say, guys, you made your place in history. You really have. Dax Hill, he had an okay game today. He had a few missed tackles, but I think today was a hard day to tackle in general. Especially in space. When it's wet on the field like that, it's tough, man. Not trying to make an excuse, but it is. It's tough. You're going to see a lot of guys miss tackles because you got to break down. It's hard to break down where it's slippery on the field. It's always an advantage to the offensive player. So, I thought DJ Turner. I think the Michigan secondary, all things being given, did a very good job today. They didn't get burnt.
No,
Ohio State receivers. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, but yes, you mentioned it, but yes, without a doubt, Michigan, the defenders did a phenomenal job, because we saw what those Ohio State wide receivers are capable of.
Yes, we did.
They could put 400 or 500 on you. They could put 50 on you in a half.
Yeah.
Easy. That wasn't difficult work for them. Easy. So they did a phenomenal job, and I'm trying to take it in. But I'm also trying to understand how you're not more excited about this. I don't get it. I'm shocked. I would have thought we would be literally the exact opposite of our demeanors today. Like for Michigan fans, this was a monumental win. And like you're just like, hey, we beat Maryland.
I've been
Great. Did a
dude,
good job.
I've been yelling throughout this whole game with my father-in-law, who's a Ohio State fan.
I don't get it.
Like I've expelled it so much energy, and I'm so. But I gotta explain, like, because it's such a feeling of, it's exhilaration, but it's also a feeling of extreme relief, And so that's just how I feel. Like I'm exhilarated. I'm excited. I'm so happy, but I'm even more than all those. I'm relieved because it's such a buildup of pressure and anxiety as you're leading up to that game. And like to finally break through is kind of like the biggest exhale you can never think of. It's like it's like, yeah, and it's like all that during the game, but like when that clock hits 000, it's like finally, like, and it's like, and it's also, for me, it's such uncharted territory. That be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how to feel. Besides, nothing negative, of course, but like I feel everything. I feel relief. I feel excitement. I feel exhilaration. Like I just, yeah, man. It's just.
Listen to me. Listen to your the old bull. Okay.
Go ahead.
Understand where we are. Michigan just beat Ohio State. Okay.
Yes.
Michigan is going to Indianapolis for the first time under Jim Harbaugh.
Amen.
We have 420 people on the line right now watching us.
Thank you.
And we're talking about college football playoff for Michigan fans. Like it
Can't
doesn't
believe
get
it.
better than this. Like it doesn't get any better.
It
It
doesn't. I mean,
because the thing is, think about this. It doesn't matter what else happens in college football today. You're there. Like
yeah.
that's the thing. Like think about that. Doesn't matter what else happens in college football. You are there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
on Tuesday, you're probably gonna be number 3 or number 4. You're gonna
Right.
be in the college football playoff.
I think they would
And
put
as
them
long as you
above.
win on the conference championship weekend, you're in.
Yeah.
You are in.
I think they're going to put us above Cincy. I don't see how they'll put us below Cincy. So I think we're at least at, if Ohio State was at 2, they might even put Michigan at 2 based on what happens with Bama and Auburn today.
I would
I mean,
crazy. You're not. I don't think you're crazy for that.
Especially if Bama is still kind of if Bama's still kind of iffy performance today versus Auburn. So we'll see. But absolutely. And then based on matchups, we can beat in a national title game with a very decent chance of winning. The way Bama's playing, I don't fear Bama and who they are. I have immense respect for them. I know exactly who they are, but they're not the typical Bama, typical, for Bama standards, right? I don't fear Cincy at all, of course. And, that just leaves Georgia. So based on how things are sitting right now. So, I don't know, man. I can't. I don't think it's even really hit me yet. I think it will truly probably hit me when we see the rankings on Tuesday, right? And you see Ohio State completely falling in
You can
Michigan.
wait that long for delayed response. Like
No,
if
I'm
you can
responding
hear the
now.
music that's playing in
I'm
the back.
responding now. I'm like I do. I'm
Here's
so
what
happy.
you're hanging out with the wrong Michigan fans, Dre. That's what I'll say. Is
No,
because if you were here, there would be Mountain Dew running through your veins right now. Excited, hyped up, ready to roll. Like that's what you're missing.
I just do. We haven't been here. We haven't won a Big Ten since 2004. We haven't beat Ohio State where it's meant anything probably since around that time, right? When we won in 11, Ohio State was down that year, so it didn't really mean anything in terms of what was on the line, right? It was great to beat them, but it wasn't the same stakes weren't there. Like I don't like I'm like I said, there's no negative emotion. There's not even a dull emotion. I just I don't know. It's just like this is incredible. I've been doing my gloating though.
You gotta soak it in.
I am.
Real quick, couple things. Number one, Keelan Sandiford, thank you so much for the super chat. He put, I told y'all, get to Stroud, beat Ohio State. And to piggyback off that, now you and I talked about it where it was just if you're able to almost the same thing that Keelan's talking about is if you get to them, and it's not that we thought Ohio State was bad or trash or anything like that. It was just if there is a window to get to, you know what I mean? If there's a path to beating Ohio State, that's literally it. It's getting to number 7. That's it.
But also on the flip side, it was offensively being very, very efficient. What did I say all the time, Desmond? Having efficient, long, sustained drives that were ending in touchdowns. Scoring efficient, long, effective drives. We had to keep that offense off the field. We couldn't have 3 and outs. I feel like and I know what happened early in the game. Anytime we had a 3 and out, more times than not, Ohio State was scoring. And especially when we were it was back deep in our own territory. You just couldn't keep that offense going out the end zone. So I said that offense, and they did that to perfection today. Especially when Ohio State was scoring, we had to score back at them. It wasn't like they were quick drives, right? They were long, sustained, effective drives, and then we would punch them in the mouth against the end zone. And that, to me, that was what was so debilitating for Ohio State was that even when they would score on us and it looks like they're about to catch us again, we would score back on them on offense, but it wouldn't be quick. It'll be like death by 1,000 cuts, and that's just so debilitating because not only is the winning team are we watching the clock, but best believe they're watching the clock too. They understand the situation. And so like that was so debilitating to him. It was absolutely perfect.
And think about this. If maybe I'm mistaken, but you lost the turnover battle. Think about that, right? So if I'm not mistaken, the only turnover that happened was a Cade pick. Am I wrong in that? In my
Yes, it was just a pick in the red zone. That's correct.
So that was the only turnover today, right?
And
Like
Ohio
so.
State, by the way, Ohio State, they were all out of the center and Stroud was all out of whack today. I mean, how many fumble snaps did they have? Like 3 or 4? At least 3 fumble snaps that I saw that CJ
It was great.
miraculously was able to get back.
But the thing that I think about is right. So the normal stat is right. Like so, if you look at it and you're just like, okay, there's only one stat I can bank on. If you say that there's only one stat I can bank on, I'm gonna bank on the turnover margin. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I can call that like okay, whatever team wins the turnover margin, I'm gonna to assume they won the game. And for Michigan to lose a turn, like there's literally no excuses. I guess that's what I'm saying is there's no excuses for Ohio State to say, oh well, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing. There's literally nothing. And also, what I will say is a call that I think would have been big was AJ heading. So uh, Michigan. So Michigan was punting. Ohio State was receiving the punt, and the Michigan receiver bumped into the Ohio State
Oh
uh,
God, don't remind me of that.
15 yards.
Oh, it's
Right.
33.
What I say is, I believe it was the very next time Ohio State punted, an Ohio State player bumped the Michigan player who was receiving the
They didn't
punt
call it though.
and didn't get it right and
They
didn't get
didn't
a
call it.
call.
Yeah, I
And I
saw
was
that
like,
too.
that's a 15-yard swing. Like that's a
Yeah,
big deal. And that
yeah.
that didn't happen, right? So it didn't go your way. But nonetheless, I'm just like that like but the and I guess I say all that to say, right, that could have gone if things go sideways after your guy catches it, right? And then you punt, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You lose the game. You look at that play and say, that's a 15-yard swing. That's a first down and a half.
Right.
That's a big deal,
Yeah.
right? But it didn't happen, and you overcame that. Like you still kept fighting. Where it was just like, yeah, no, didn't happen, but I'm gonna keep rolling. Like because we're better than that. Like we're still gonna keep fighting. You know
Do
what I
me
mean?
do me a favor.
That,
Click on
that's
this
impressive.
comment.
That's
Click on this
really
comment by Scholar at 429 because it's a shot at your critique essentially, and I've had the same critique as well about saying we can't win with the way they were running the ball. I want to address that because do you see it, Skylar at 429? The guy on the left was wrong all year, saying we can't get it done by running the ball.
I'll work on it, but go ahead and address it.
With Skylar for one, that guy on the left, Desmond, yeah, he did say that, but I've been saying the same thing to be all fair as well. And today, what Michigan did, it actually still went along with what the point that me and Desmond were trying to make. It was never that Michigan's strength was a running game. If you go back and to listen to everything we were saying, it was never critiquing that Michigan's strength was the running game. It was the fact that they were so one-dimensional so early in the season with the running game. And the passing game was so non-existent. It was a question mark in terms of can they turn it on and have effective and be effective with the pass game with it when it's needed. And even though today clearly they physicality wise they running the football was a driving force, K still had to make throws today, right? Which he wasn't doing.
Could you bank on with no questions asked? Could you bank on Hassan Haskins having 163? Blake Corum had to have at least what 60, 70 yards, 50, 60 yards,
Yeah,
something like that.
he hit that
Couple big
157 yarder. It was, I was losing my mind on that. I was like, go, boy, go. And by the way, if Blake
but
is healthy, he doesn't get caught
can
there.
absolutely bank on that against elite teams,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
even like in Skyler's kind of moving us with his narrative, it's kind of moving us down the line. But nonetheless, like yes, I would. I would agree, and I would stick on the point of yes, in order to beat elite teams, you got to throw it better than you did today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, today, it worked, right? But if you play Alabama in week 1, do you think whatever Cade did today? I think it was what with I don't have my computer set up, so I think what 13 of 16, with less than 200 and an interception.
I
Do
think it
you
was
think that's against
157.
Alabama? Like I don't think you can bank on that every single week. Now, what he did today, I'm going to take that and run with it because you beat the number two team in the
We
nation.
still passed the ball, Desmond, but still, like this, it's still not the same thing. When we were critiquing it
Right.
early this season, it was when we were having games where um, K threw like 40 yards, like he literally had 44 passing yards in the game. Like those were the games we were like, hold on a second, yeah, we're winning, but this is not a formula that we need to have some balance. We were always going back to the balance, right? Because we
Right.
knew like, today, yes, even though 65-70% of the plays that were effective was running, we still had to make plays in the game passing the ball. And best believe what helps open up the running game, which is our biggest strength, is to have the threat of passing it, right? It's because we've gotten better with passing. This is what I believe. It's because that we've shown more of a threat with passing over the last few weeks that we were able to be even more effective with the run, because you can't just stack the box against Michigan anymore. Because you do have to respect an Andrew Anthony. You do have to respect and Eric All, both of those guys who've had big time touchdowns over the last couple of weeks. You do have to respect Sanders Still, right? In the misdirection they could do in the backfield, right? They have legitimate weapons where it's like Cornelius Johnson had a big time catch today as well, right? You have to respect that because of the threat of the play action pass, right? And that's exactly what me and Desmond wanted, right? And when we were talking about high attempts in the passing game, we weren't saying that should be the plan every week, but we were saying early in the season, if you go back and listen, guys, early in the season when we were playing Rudy Poo opponents who we were way better than, that's when you get the chance to experiment and throw the ball a little bit more, right? So like it was never about saying Michigan can't win being strong, leaning on the running game as their strength, but it can't win not being balanced offensively as an attack.
Right.
And I would stick to that. I don't think I'm rewriting history. You can go back and listen to everything we've said. That's all it's been about. Finding ways to become more balanced so you can have days like you had today.
True. Eddie Rogers. What I will say is, tune in.
What's he talking about?
From the beginning. We're not going to really get into that. Start the stream from the beginning, and that's literally what we have been talking about. So, moving on. So Slim says it's hilarious how people are blasting Ryan Day. He had one bad game, so on and so forth. I mean, sure, but nonetheless, like we're the Michigan channel.
I think today's Ryan Day's first Big Ten loss. I'm pretty sure.
You are correct. You are very correct. This is first, and this is, if I'm not mistaken, his third season, right?
Yeah, his first Big Ten loss. I mean,
first Big Ten loss.
Like, look. I understand. Ohio State fans making them sick, losing to us. I can totally understand that. Trust me, we understand that feeling very well. What it likes to lose to the other side, but they over there throwing losses at. I mean, throwing huge, salt towards Ryan Day, a man who only has one loss in this conference, and you were just in the national title game a year ago. I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, like, I think you're in pretty good position. You just lost today. Now, some of the play call. Now, I think about some of the play call by Ryan Day today. There were a few questionable calls. I thought some of the run up the middles that they did were a little some question marks I had. There was a draw play they did, like on the 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6 or something like that. I can understand that. But one thing I did get to take into account today too is the conditions as well. I mean, I don't think this was prime 40 temp type day conditions for throwing the ball. I mean, that's just me.
Correct.
So I just think Ryan Day, one thing he's been known for is being, and I'll still say this to this day, is being a genius of a play caller. Right? He's highly, highly respected. So
I would agree with that. I'm in that camp. I am in that.
So it's like if he chose, I am assuming if he chose to, be some of those calls that seem maybe a little bit conservative, I'm sure it's probably with a good reason. And I'm assuming it has something to do with the weather. That's why I think. But whatever. Y'all go ahead and run that man out of town if you want to. I'll be happy you did. That guy is fantastic at what he does, and he ain't going nowhere. He'll be back next year.
So Connie Morris says Gate is overrated. There was so much in Michigan's favor, and I hate saying that about the rest, but there was so many holdings and PIs that weren't called against Michigan. So, Dre, let's move past that. But one thing I do want to talk to you about is this weird notion that happened that I started to see last night as I'm doing dishes late at night, doing dishes, and I'm checking Twitter, and there's this, and maybe I can't say groundswell because I don't follow that many Michigan fans, and honestly, I don't follow that many people on Twitter, but nonetheless, like I started to see people talking about the officiating crew that's going to officiate the Michigan Ohio State game. And I even called you today, probably, I don't know, it was 9, 10 o'clock this morning, where I'm just like, this is just weird. Like, to where I started to see people, and here's what I saw. And maybe I'm completely wrong and I'm just losing it. But what I saw was people essentially laying the groundwork of, oh, here's why we are going to lose. Like, if we did lose the game, what we would do is then in turn get some screenshots of the game, right? To where you could point at that and just say, well, based on this screenshot, we should have got a holding call, or we should have, or this shouldn't have been a holding call, or whatever, one way or the other. But essentially, that the refs were out to get us, and that's why we lost the game. And that kind of drove me nuts. I had to actually call you on the phone. It was like, this isn't a textable thing. I had to call Dre, and I just didn't love that part because at the end of the day, what I want is for Michigan fans to just expect more from your team. Forget about the refs. Like it's we're about an hour into the Alabama Auburn game, which is the Iron Bowl, and I'm an Alabama fan. I've heard multiple people ask why I'm wearing red. That's why. But for me, I don't care if the Auburn staff is refereeing the game. I expect us to win, and I don't care if it was 1 versus 2, 2 versus unranked, 3 versus unranked. It doesn't matter. I expect us to win, no matter what. And that's what I assume for Michigan, because Michigan is that type of program. Like, Michigan is a blue blood. Like, Michigan is what I would consider a big dog. Like, yes, you're. It's not a, we bank on the referees, and one of our we've been in a group chat together, Corey, but I text him as well. It's like of 2016, because that comes up a lot. It's just, the refs were bad, blah, blah. And the thing that I text him was, number one, you've got a claim to blame with Fox Sports, because they did not have a good angle of that first down play. So if you want to say, JT was short, I'm like, I'm not sure that there's a definitive look either way. But nonetheless, like, blame Fox Sports. They didn't have a good. They should have, without a doubt, had some kind of either over the head
That's what point you
point, or from the sideline. Nonetheless, like, you should be better than the referees. Like,
right.
and at the end of the day, you should be better than the referees. And it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry that I'm getting into that, especially on a huge day for Michigan. But that's something that someone just brought up as far as the referees and stuff like that. Like, but I just feel like when you're a top tier program, like, that should be the last thing on your mind of who.
I think it's easier for one. I think what happens in those situations is that emotionally, it's easier for fans to point at things outside of their own house first, right? It's harder to look within at times to say and take ownership of our own mistakes. And I think if you reflect on games in the past, like 2016 or what have you, there is points of blame of the outcome, both internally and definitely referees. There were a lot of questionable calls that definitely that game um, affected the outcome. However, there are also a lot of internal things that Michigan did as well, right? You know, the pick six in our own territory, right? The fumble on our own goal line. You know, those are the type of things where it's like that's why you can't just put it on one thing or the other. So as we were preparing for this game, you called me. You know, like I expected some fans to be a little bit worried about the officiating and all that stuff. But the main thing was you can control what you can control. And the best way to not allow referees to impact this game, which they did not, is to play the more disciplined football. And today, Michigan did not have the most penalties. Ohio State did. And it was because Michigan was the more mentally tough and disciplined team. You know, Ohio State, how many false starts they had, holding calls, right? PI calls, right? Michigan barely beat themselves. Outside of I think a false start by Eric All, you know, like other than that, it just wasn't much that Michigan did wrong in terms of playing the game within the rules and clean. And so that's the best way that you can eliminate refs, man. No matter what side of a team you're on, it is you have to rise above and you have to make the plays in which the refs really can't say anything, right? It's tough to do because refs definitely have an impact, but it's just like my only thing is I know I'm getting long winded. Is that when it comes to referees and games, always look internally first before you start to put it fully on one thing or the other, right? Before you put refs as the main blame for any outcome, make sure you're checking off all the boxes of the team things that your team did wrong. And if you've already gone through those boxes, you're like, you know what, we really didn't make a lot of mistakes that day. Then you can put majority of the blame on the rest. But if you know that you made your share of mistakes too, then hey, you have your answer. It can't be one more than the other.
But I mean, I understand it, but it's just I don't know.
And you
It
know what? It's part of it's learning how to win too, Desmond. I mean, like that.
that's a difficult thing. That's very
It's
difficult.
very difficult.
How to win.
You know, and you know, like you're speaking from a Bama fan, you know, and Bama's used to winning, and so when you're a program and fans, we're part of the growth. We're along that journey with the program, right? It's part of learning how to win and how to interact in big games, you know, and you know that's what it's all about, right? And so, hey, this is one of those days, you know, people are critiquing me for not smiling enough. I'm happy as it can be, you know, but I really am. But it's
But
just like I don't really know how to handle this.
I think they are right. You need to be smiling more. Like, are you serious? Like, this is a
I
monumental,
am ecstatic. We've been streaming.
monumental.
Dude, we're being streaming for over an hour. If I smiled that much, I might have to get checked like I had some kind of Botox injection or
This
something.
is silly. I
Like
don't. I don't understand you. Like,
I
you
mean,
understand how like football fulfillment, sports fulfillment works? Like, do you get this? Like,
oh,
where
I'm here,
you
Phil.
were probably here's the thing that drives me nuts about, and I love you to death, but you would be smiling more that the Detroit Lions are on a Thursday on Thanksgiving than your team beating Ohio State on a Saturday when literally all the chips are on the table.
No,
This is ridiculous.
I can't. So I wish, for one, you're wrong. I wish that
I'm
I could. I should have had my mom-in-law record me the final couple minutes of that game because I literally lost my mind. I was loud. I was running around the house. I can't tell you, um, like I how happy I was. Like I really I let it all out. Like I let it all out before I came on the stream. Like I was like literally, trust me. The energy and the yelling and the jumping, I literally was jumping. Like I let it all out. And that's my fault, guys. Especially what this moment was. I should have recorded it so you can see it as well. But you know, I'm like I said, I don't have much more I can say, man. Um, it's
Here, the
incredible.
last two things I'll give is number one, someone who's a little off. Him says Day has never won anything. That's false. He has won the Big Ten championship, and I think every year. So the last 2 years, I think he's won it, right? Like I don't think he's had a year that he has not won it outside of this year.
Yeah.
Um, so that is something.
I think it's funny that Ohio State fan. Look, my father-in-law told me, man, finally y'all won it first time in 10 years and all that stuff. Man, it's just like Ohio State fans, you guys gotta learn how to lose with grace. I seen some of you guys came into our chat, trying to throw little subtle jabs, and some people have had grace, and I appreciate that. You've beaten us 15 out of the last 16 meetings. Back off. All right, respectfully, like back off.
It happens, and it
It
happens.
happens. Michigan has their moment. Like just back off. You have the recent history and just live with that. I'm not going to go around talking a ton of trash to Ohio State fans. I'll throw a couple jabs out there because this is our moment and we deserve it. However, I also realize, the recent history. So just back off, guys. So you don't have to be nice, but don't be stupid. You know what I'm saying? Now you're looking real petty if you're talking trash, like, oh, congratulations. Like, just move on. Move on.
Yeah.
This is our moment.
Thank you to Extreme Dirt Racing. You put OSU fan here. You guys ran all over us when we knew it was coming, and I would agree with that. But and that was one of the things where it was us, Michigan imposed their will. Like, and I just, more and more because I was one that was critical of them earlier in the season when they played Western and they played, Northern Illinois. Just you guys need to, sharpen up the pass game more, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They stuck. They essentially stuck to who they were. They stuck to their identity of listen, we're a passing team. Like that's not where that's not what we do. We don't throw the ball a bunch. Blah blah blah. So on and so forth. So to me, I listen. I just want to make sure we end the stream with me as someone who has been very critical of Jim Harbaugh, giving him all of the credit of taking what you do well and just literally driving that point home against an elite foe. An elite foe. Ohio State was elite. There was no one who was not saying that about Ohio State, that they are an elite team, especially when they hung 49 on Michigan State at the half. In the
Yeah.
first half, there was no one saying Ohio State, they don't belong in the top two. They don't belong in the top four. Like you went out and you beat that team. And that's
Yeah.
a man. So I want to make sure I give Jim Harbaugh all of the credit because I would have slandered him up and down this channel had he not won this game. So yeah,
Deservedly so. It's about proven ground, right? And it talked about during today's telecast. It was never about Harbaugh being a bad coach. No one is saying anybody worth their have any idea what they're talking about. Never said Harbaugh's a bad coach, but we definitely said bad performances. We definitely said up to this game, underwhelming results, right? Definitely not meeting the expectations to when he got here. But those things were definitely said, and I thought were warranted, right? But no one ever said he was a bad coach. And if you were in the camp of ready to move on from him, it was because you thought he was a bad coach, but you thought that he had hit his apex here at Michigan, and it was a question of rather you could accept that or not, right? Because you figured that and Malachi, you're right. I did say that about him being the fourth best coach in the Big
Malachi
Ten.
said,
Malachi, I'm sorry, Malachi. You're
"What
right. I
the
did say that.
heck?"
Like it's all about proving ground. Like when we put ourselves out there, we put our thoughts out there. I don't mind admitting I was wrong, and I wanted to be wrong, and that's where it's like it's about showing what you can do and getting past those tests. And Harbaugh would get to a certain test, and he will always fail, right? And so, and that's where it will stop, right? And so, and yeah, man, I'm happy to be wrong. And it's days like today that Harbaugh shows what he can do with a program, how he can turn them around, and he gets some of that grace that he lost over these last couple of years. And that's how it should work. You just can't get the benefit of the doubt forever just because of your name. You have to do special things. You have to have special seasons like this, right? You have to break through, right? And they did today. And that's what it's all about, man. That's when that's the hardball of old where people count them out. Stanford, no one believed what Stanford could do anything, and Stanford upsets USC, right? And so much credit to that guy, respect for that guy for what he did. But going forward, if he has embarrassing performances, we're going to call it out. That's how this works, baby. That's what he gets paid to do. It's never personal. And I saw that comment he made.
What comment?
A Harbaugh made about Auburn going up. All right, Desmond. What did he say? Something about some guys think they're born at for a triple or something like that.
Oh yeah, guys. Some guys think they're born on third base. Corey just put it in the chat. Some people were born on third base and think they hit a triple. Jimmy,
okay. Hey, look, man. Now, look, he deserved. Ryan Day did say he wanted to hang 100 on us. So you know what? It's all fair and love. It's all fair game, I guess. But hey, man, this is when the rivalry is back, right? There has to be some back and forth, right? And look, Ohio State's won a lot more recently, but now Michigan has gotten one. Now the coach talk. Hey, this is what it's about. And next year it's going to be fun, right? And the Village next year is going to be fun. This is what makes it even. This is what really gives it even more juice. It's not as much juice, and when it's lopsided. Now, of course, when we had the stakes today, it is juice. But think about we have these stakes next year and what happened this past year, right? And now we're going to the horseshoe, right? Think about the build up for that. So, no, it's okay. He can talk his trash. It's perfectly fine. I thought it was funny.
We are wrapping up the biggest Michigan win in years. Michigan beats Ohio State 42-27, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't get to see the final end of the game, but Michigan wins 42-27. While you're here, please like and subscribe. We got 290, 288 on the channel right now. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. Can't thank you enough. And yeah, while you're here, like and subscribe, and then head to Mark's channel, the voice of college football, the main channel. Subscribe to his channel as well. He will be live and streaming all night tonight. So we are done.
The man's dedicated.
There's going to be a lot more Coors Light and libations being had. Because
I wish we were together, man. I wish we were together. Who knows? Maybe next week we will be for the Big 10 title game.
Yes, that's coming very soon. Very soon. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we are out of here, Dre. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, guys. Go blue, baby.